Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into one of the wildest moments from the story, the diplomatic fist bump that shook two worlds. What happens when a simple Earth-style greeting accidentally becomes a galactic engagement ceremony? That's right. Lieutenant Jessica Carter and Officer Saarath went from strangers to accidental soulmates in under 10 seconds. But how did it all unfold? And more importantly, how did they escape the clutches of an interstellar marriage vow without launching a diplomatic crisis? Stay tuned to hear the full story, including a moment at the end that'll melt your heart and blow your mind at the same time. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing sci-fi love stories, cosmic adventures, and culture clash comedy from across the stars. And hey, leave a comment with your thoughts or where you're listening from. We love hearing from you. As the shuttle lifted off from Terra Nova Frontier, Jessica gazed through the viewport at the fading silhouette of the station. Half alien, half human, entirely unforgettable. Her hands subconsciously touched her uniform pocket, where she still kept a small sliver of the burnt crystal coin. A souvenir, not of love lost, but of respect earned. Saarath had given it to her moments before she boarded. A shard, he'd said, not to bind, but to remember. She hadn't replied, only squeezed it gently before stepping onto the shuttle ramp. Now, as Earth's gravity welcomed her home, she knew something had shifted. Not just in interstellar diplomacy, but in her. The stars didn't feel so distant anymore, and neither did he. Chapter 1, A Mission. Nobody wanted. Lieutenant Jessica Carter crouched behind the control panel of the NASA shuttle Monument Valley, fiddling with a loose circuit housing. She loved exploring the frontier of space, but this particular mission had been nothing but paperwork and PR stunts. Assigned to a 6-week diplomatic tour with the RZen, a reptilian species whose official alliance with Earth was lukewarm at best, she found herself stuck on the newly commissioned space station Terra Nova Frontier, orbiting the far edges of the Milky Way. Thick glass separated her from the infinite, star-speckled void outside. Terra Nova Frontier was meant to be a beacon of shared human-RZen cooperation, but every corridor reeked of tension and fresh paint. The RZen considered the station's design suspiciously angled, while the NASA engineers grumbled about RZen safety parameters that made life support systems twice as complex. Jessica sighed, snapping the circuit panel shut. That should do it, she muttered. Normally, she wasn't in charge of electronics repairs. She was a pilot, for goodness sake, but the RZen officers had unexpectedly implemented new security protocols. Now, half the station's systems were acting up. Carter! A voice crackled over her earpiece. It belonged to Commander Graham of NASA's Diplomatic Corps. You're needed at the arrivals deck. The RZen delegation is disembarking soon. Copy that, Jessica said, wiping her hands on a rag. She zipped up her uniform, a practical dark blue NASA jumpsuit with a single patch reading Carter, and jogged toward the docking bay. When she arrived, the place was already bustling. RZen soldiers in sleek black uniforms lined up in 2 columns, each with scaly green faces, glowing red eyes, and ridged spines protruding at the back of their heads. Their stance was rigid, disciplined. Across from them, a few NASA officials stood with forced smiles, adjusting suits or fiddling with badges. The entire greeting ceremony felt more like an uneasy standoff than a warm welcome. Standing near the center was a tall RZen with silver stripes on his shoulders, signifying some level of rank. Saarath, if Jessica remembered correctly. She had overheard rumors about him, a disciplined intelligence officer with little patience for messy human habits. Not exactly the friendly handshake type, she mused. Commander Graham motioned Jessica over with a tight-lipped smile. Lieutenant Carter, you'll help lead them to the lounge for debriefing. Got it. She forced her face into what she hoped was a hospitable expression. Saarath turned his narrow reptilian eyes on her. Lieutenant Carter, he said, voice low and resonant, my men and I appreciate a swift transition to official business. Right this way, Jessica replied, stepping forward. She used her typical warm greeting style, a confident nod, followed by a quick raise of her fist, intended as a casual hey there gesture. She'd done this 1,000 times with her pilot friends, an informal fist bump. But as soon as she tapped her knuckles lightly against Saarath's scaled hand, the entire bay seemed to freeze. RZen soldiers inhaled sharply, eyes going wide, a tension so thick you could bottle it spread across the docking area. Jessica's heart pounded. Uh, did I do something wrong? Saarath's lips parted slightly, revealing pointed teeth. He stood stock still, as though she'd just done something scandalous. Before she could apologize, Commander Graham nudged her aside. Carter, hold on. His complexion had gone pale. I just remembered we never covered the Arzen greeting customs. Jessica gulped. What exactly did I do? Across from them, several Arzen whispered among themselves in urgent, hushed tones. Jessica caught fragments of their language, references to flesh union, pledge, and immediate vow. Her stomach dropped. Oh, great. Chapter 2, The Instant Engagement. 20 minutes later, Jessica and Saarath were whisked away to an impromptu meeting in the station's executive conference room. The walls, newly painted a stark white, displayed holographic NASA and Arzen insignias flickering in faint neon. On one side of the long table sat Commander Graham and two NASA representatives. On the other side, an austere Arzen envoy with intricate markings along the ridge of her crest. Saarath stood beside her, arms folded, gaze fixed forward. Jessica sat uncomfortably in the middle of the table, caught in some cosmic misunderstanding. Commander Graham cleared his throat. We've been informed that Lieutenant Carter's gesture, the closed fist contact, carries a specific meaning among Arzen culture. The envoy, an elder Arzen called Shalkora, inclined her head. In Arzen society, the knuckled touch is a rare ceremonial sign of acceptance, an indication of a vow made in public. Typically, it is a vow of union or betrothal. Jessica's jaw dropped. Betrothal? I just fist bumped him. Saarath's tail flicked anxiously. This is most irregular, Elder Shalkora. The human could not possibly have known the gesture's connotation among our people. Shalkora's expression was severe. Ignorance of the vow does not nullify it. It was made in front of many witnesses. She placed a leathery hand on the table. We must manage this carefully. A vow signaled publicly cannot be brushed aside without consequence to the Arzen's honor. Jessica's ears buzzed with confusion. Are we seriously talking about me being engaged to him? Shalkora nodded, her reptilian eyes solemn. If you do not honor the vow, it could be seen as an insult to the Rosen delegation. Rumors may suggest your people treat our tradition with scorn. Commander Graham rubbed his temples. This is complicated. Lieutenant, the political ramifications could be huge. Jessica's cheeks burned. She'd expected dealing with Arzen procedure to be a headache, but she never imagined accidental proposals. Can't we clarify that it's just a misunderstanding? The vow was witnessed, Saarath repeated, although he sounded uneasy. Our protocols dictate a formal acceptance or a formal dissolution, but not an immediate denial. Shalkora shot Saarath a pointed look. Precisely. The vow must be handled through the rite of confirmation or the rite of release. Jessica's mind spun. And if we do the rite of release, that solves everything, right? Shalkora's scaly brow furrowed. A rite of release is not merely, as humans say, signing a paper. It's a ceremonial process. You and Officer Saarath would have to undergo a trial of sincerity. If found disrespectful, it can spark a formal complaint to our homeworld, potentially dissolving the alliance. Jessica's shoulders slumped. Everything in her screamed a protest. This was it was just a silly fist bump. But one glance at Commander Graham's grim face told her this was no joke. Saarath exhaled slowly. I will abide by whatever resolution ensures peace. If the rite of confirmation is less controversial, I'll do it. If it means dissolving it in a more amicable way, I'll do that too. Wait, Jessica held up a hand. Which one is simpler, confirmation or release? Shalkora gave a short hiss. Confirmation is straightforward. You simply proceed as if you have declared an engagement. However, that entails an exchange of tokens and an official rite of union eventually. Jessica's gut tightened. And release? For the release, you must demonstrate mutual respect, but also a decision that your vow is incompatible, Shalkora explained. It involves a series of symbolic gestures, shared trials, if you will, to prove neither side is demeaning the vow. If you pass, the vow is nullified with dignity. Commander Graham closed his eyes as if waging an internal war. Lieutenant Carter, it's your call. We don't want to force you into an accidental engagement. Saarath's gaze flicked across Jessica's face. In that moment, she saw behind his stoic posture a swirl of uncertain emotions. She swallowed. I guess we do the rite of release. A wave of relief passed over the room. Even Shalcora relaxed her shoulders a bit. Very well, Shalcora said. You will have to complete the preliminary instruction for the rite, then publicly declare your decision. But be warned, the rite can be lengthy, and the entire station will be watching. Jessica sighed, heart pounding. She wished she could run off to the quiet corners of the station, away from all the forms and ceremonies. Instead, she found herself locked into the strangest engagement she could have imagined. Chapter 3, Crash Course in Rosette Customs. Jessica returned to her cramped quarters that evening, exhaustion etched into her bones. She flopped onto the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. The overhead lights glowed a sterile white. She clicked them off, letting the gentle hum of the station's ventilation lull her spinning thoughts. A beep from her datapad startled her. She glanced at the screen. Incoming holocall Saarath. Her throat constricted, but she answered anyway. His reptilian face appeared in soft, flickering light. Lieutenant Carter, he began, voice calm but subdued. Hey, she said, trying not to sound too awkward. Thanks for calling? Saarath cleared his throat, a gesture that sounded almost like a low hiss. I realize this is a stressful situation for you. It is also for me. My intention was never to impose a vow. I wanted to see if you have any questions about the rite or the steps we must take. His tone was surprisingly gentle. Jessica found it hard to maintain her cynicism. I guess everything. I have no idea what to expect. He nodded. Tomorrow we will meet with an interpreter assigned by Shalcora. She will walk us through the rituals. Then we must present ourselves to the Resen Council envoys. They will test our sincerity in upholding the vow's traditions, while also testing if we truly want to dissolve it. Jessica rubbed her forehead. It's all so formal. Saarath managed a faint approximation of a sympathetic look. Our species values ritual. Among Resen, it is a mark of respect to follow established protocols. Yet I sense your species does not rely so heavily on symbolic gestures. She let out a half laugh. We rely on them in different ways. We do handshakes, high fives, and apparently fist bumps that mean an accidental betrothal. He blinked, and for a second Jessica thought she heard a low, soft hiss that might be the Resen version of a chuckle. Well, Saarath said, I wanted you to know that I understand none of this was your intention. I appreciate your willingness to do the right. It helps maintain peace between our worlds. Jessica's chest tightened at the sincerity in his voice. I do it for the mission, but also I don't want to insult your culture. Saarath inclined his head. Then let us face these challenges together. Good evening, Lieutenant. The call ended, leaving Jessica alone in the dim cabin. For a moment, she found herself strangely comforted. Despite the surreal predicament, there was something about Saarath's quiet steadiness that put her at ease. She fell asleep wondering how a single fist bump could spin her life into such bizarre territory. Chapter 4, Trials of Sincerity. They gathered in a large chamber near the station's main thoroughfare, its tall windows revealing the swirling cosmos beyond. The Resen had arranged temporary decorations, twisting metal ornaments shaped like dragonflies, symbols of transformation. An interpreter named Varen, a Resen female with pale green scales, guided Jessica and Saarath through the preliminary steps. Jessica was handed a rolled parchment in alien script, while Saarath carried an ornate wooden case. Varen explained, the rite of release begins with an oath of presence. Each vow partner must declare they stand in sincerity, that the vow was made, and that they wish to explore its dissolution with mutual respect. Jessica exhaled. She took a spot on the dais, Saarath at her side. Shalcora and half a dozen Resen officials looked on from the audience. Commander Graham and a handful of NASA observers were also present, tension visible on their faces. Varen gave them a nod, and they placed their hands over their hearts, or in Saarath's case, the scaled chestplate area. Following the lines she had painstakingly memorized, Jessica recited, I, Lieutenant Jessica Carter of Earth, stand in sincerity. Let this vow be recognized, and let our intention be truth. Saarath bowed his head. I, Officer Saarath of the Resen, stand in sincerity. Let this vow be recognized, and let our intention be truth. Polite applause rose from the NASA side. Uncertain silence from the RZN side. Varen then handed them each a small token, a crystal coin etched with swirling patterns. These are tokens of the vow. Keep them until the final stage, when you must choose to return or break them. Should either of you fail to respect the vow, these tokens serve as evidence of dishonor. Jessica pocketed hers gingerly, feeling the foreign weight of it. But that was only the first step. The rite included a series of trials, each representing an aspect of union the Arzenpam took very seriously, such as synergy, protection, and willingness to cooperate. The next morning, they found themselves in the station's agricultural bay, an enclosed ecosystem for hydroponic farming. Varen explained, the trial of synergy requires you to accomplish a task together, proving that in unity or separation you can handle adversity. The adversity turned out to be reprogramming an irrigation system that had become infested with alien moss. Jessica, as a pilot, had no idea how to handle it, but with her NASA training in basic engineering, she improvised. Saarath used his knowledge of Arzen biochemistry to neutralize the moss. Side by side, they sweated through hours of tinkering with tubes and nutrient packs, all under the watchful gaze of a Arzen observer. In the quiet moments, they exchanged small talk, Jessica teasing him about NASA's standard rations, taste like cardboard, trust me, and he sharing a snippet of Arzen tradition about war hunts. We used to consider it an honor to hunt a spire lizard with our bare hands. By the end, they were spattered with green residue, hair and scales slick with condensation. But the irrigation system whirred to life. They collapsed on a metal bench, panting. That was a workout, Jessica gasped, pushing damp hair from her face. Saarath's scaled chest rose and fell. Agreed, but we cooperated effectively. A small sense of camaraderie sparked between them, an acknowledgement that they were doing more than just going through the motions. They were a team, albeit an accidental one. Chapter 5. The Climax of Ceremony. After completing the synergy trial, they tackled the final step, the declaration of intent. Conducted in a ceremonial hall, it required them to stand before a large audience of both Arzen and humans and publicly proclaim whether they wished to confirm or release the vow. All day, a knot of anxiety grew in Jessica's stomach. So much rode on this moment: diplomatic ties, the station's fragile trust, and her own sense of personal integrity. When the time came, Jessica dressed in a formal dark blue NASA uniform with subtle gold trim, while Saarath wore a Arzen ceremonial robe made of black leather-like material adorned with silver insignia. They stood at opposite ends of a wide dais with an ornate metal brazier set in the center, flickering with a soft blue flame. Arzen attendants filled the seats along the hall's perimeter. NASA delegates, including Commander Graham, lined the opposite side. The hush in the chamber was oppressive, the tension tangible. Shalcora stepped forward. We gather here to witness the final phase of the vow between Lieutenant Carter of Earth and Officer Saarath of the Arzen. Let the right of release or the right of union be decided. She nodded at Varen, who beckoned Jessica and Saarath forward to stand on either side of the brazier. Jessica's hands shook slightly as she drew out the crystal coin. Saarath mirrored her, presenting his coin. Shalcora spoke solemnly. Lieutenant Carter, Officer Saarath, you have completed the required trials. You have proved sincerity. Now speak your choice. Will you confirm the vow and unite as Arzen custom demands? Or do you seek the right of release, dissolving this vow with honor? For a moment, Jessica's mind flashed back to all they had shared in the last few days. The quiet conversation on the holo call, the sweaty hours in the agricultural bay, the respectful handshake that followed each's success, and the unexpected sense of trust that formed between them. She studied Saarath's calm, stoic profile. He turned his red eyes on her, and a silent understanding seemed to pass between them. Jessica cleared her throat. I never intended to make such a vow, but I've come to respect the Arzen customs, and also to respect Officer Saarath. She paused, glancing down at the coin in her palm. He's dedicated, honorable, and patient. Yet, I believe we both see this vow for what it was, an accidental gesture. Neither of us is ready for a union, so with full respect, I choose the right of release. Her voice shook near the end, She worried the Urazen might take it as rejection, but she forced herself to keep her posture tall. Saarath nodded, stepping closer to the brazier. I too wished to release this vow. The initial act was unintentional, though not without significance. Lieutenant Carter has shown courage and sincerity. I am grateful for her willingness to respect our traditions. It has reminded me that there is more to humans than confusion and haste. A faint hiss that might be a chuckle rippled through him. But we part from this vow as allies, not strangers. Jessica's eyes stung unexpectedly. She had not realized she'd grown so invested in not disappointing him. Shalkora's gaze swept across the assembly. So be it. By the authority of the Urazen Council, we honor your mutual decision to dissolve the vow. She pointed to the flame. Return your tokens. Jessica and Saarath each placed their crystal coins into the brazier's blue fire. The flames rose with a gentle roar, turning the crystals to shimmering ash that drifted upward like sparks. A surge of relief washed over Jessica, mixed with an odd pang of loss, as though she were letting go of something intangible but meaningful. Shalkora extended her arms. The vow is released. May the bond of mutual respect remain, even as the pledge dissolves. A wave of applause swept over the crowd. Commander Graham beamed, looking like someone who had just avoided a political catastrophe. Urazen officials offered polite nods. In the midst of the cheers, Jessica found herself exchanging a small smile with Saarath. It felt like a secret moment amid the throng, an acknowledgement that they had navigated a cosmic misunderstanding and somehow come out with a deeper empathy for each other's worlds. Chapter 6. After the Flames. In the days that followed, the tension aboard Terra Nova Frontier eased, replaced by a curious sense of relief and renewed cooperation. NASA engineers began collaborating with Urazen scientists to refine the station's systems. Diplomatic talks resumed with fewer glares and more genuine exchanges. Jessica stood on the observation deck, gazing out at a swirling nebula the station was currently orbiting. The vastness of space always made her feel at once insignificant and profoundly alive. Footsteps approached. She turned to see Saarath. "You're leaving soon?" he asked, voice neutral. She nodded. "Commander Graham wants me back on Earth for a debrief. Then it's on to the next assignment, I guess." Saarath's tail flicked, his eyes lingering on the star field. "I too have new orders. I'll remain here on Terra Nova Frontier for a while, overseeing Urazen intelligence liaisons." They stood in silence, the hum of the station a low backdrop. Jessica finally broke the quiet. "So, that was some cosmic roller coaster, huh?" A faint hiss that signaled Urazen amusement escaped him. "Indeed. I never imagined a simple contact, what did you call it, a fist bump, could lead to all this. Yet, I am glad it happened." She tilted her head. "Glad?" He clasped his clawed hands behind his back. "I learned that humans are not as impulsive or as reckless as we believed. Or perhaps you are, but you temper it with goodwill and adaptability. Either way, it has changed my perspective." A warm sensation unfurled in her chispa. "You're not half bad yourself, Officer Saarath. Maybe one day you can visit Earth for real. You know, see Arizona's red deserts? Drink real iced tea." He inclined his head. "Perhaps I will. And should I find you there, I will refrain from any ill-informed gestures." Jessica burst out laughing. "Deal. But if you see me raising my fist, run." While they shared a grin, a moment of camaraderie born out of trial, she extended her hand, palm open this time in the universal sign of a handshake. Saarath pressed his scaled palm to hers, a gentle shake that felt symbolic in its own way. A new start, free from the confusion of the old vow. Stepping back, Jessica couldn't help but smile. "Take care, Saarath." He dipped his head in a dignified farewell. "And you as well, Lieutenant Carter. May our paths cross again, minus the ceremonial entanglements." As she left the observation deck, Jessica felt an odd mixture of sadness and excitement for the next chapter of her life. The accidental vow had ended, but the experience left her a little wiser, her perspectives a little broader. She suspected that no matter where she went next, she'd remember the stoic Urazen officer who taught her that even the biggest cultural divide can be bridged by sincerity, and sometimes by a single accidental fist bump. Epilogue. The promise of shared horizons. Several weeks later, back on Earth, Jessica stood on the tarmac of a desert airfield in Arizona, the hot wind kicking up dust around her. She glanced toward the horizon, imagining how it might look to a Arzen, an endless stretch of dusty orange, the sun's glare strong and unyielding. Her datapad pinged with an incoming message. She opened it to find a short note. To Lieutenant Carter, I have recently reviewed images of your Arizona home. Fascinating terrain. The day may come when I visit. With respect, Officer Saarath. She felt an involuntary grin tug at her lips. As the blazing sun warmed her face, she found herself thinking that maybe, in the grand scheme of galaxies and cosmic misunderstandings, there was beauty in the accidental. For what had started as a comedic fiasco ended in genuine friendship, and if the stars aligned, perhaps an even deeper bond somewhere down the line. And as the shuttle lifted off from Terra Nova Frontier, Jessica gazed through the viewport at the fading silhouette of the station, half alien, half human, entirely unforgettable. Her hand subconsciously touched her uniform pocket, where she still kept a small sliver of the burnt crystal coin. A souvenir, not of love lost, but of respect earned. Saarath had given it to her moments before she boarded. A shard, he'd said, not to bind, but to remember. She hadn't replied, only squeezed it gently before stepping onto the shuttle ramp. Now, as Earth's gravity welcomed her home, she knew something had shifted. Not just in interstellar diplomacy, but in her. The stars didn't feel so distant anymore, and neither did he.